Well, good morning, and thanks so much for tuning into the Trade Setup. I'm Niraj Shah, and it's going to be an action-packed evening. I can tell you that. While our markets are shut, will the day be action-packed? Remains to be seen. First, what's happened to the world markets overnight? So I think I need to first point that out. I think the U.S. markets are doing, or rather, did well for themselves. Let's put it that way. So this is what the Dow, S&P, and the Nasdaq did. The Nasdaq, in particular, closed in with record highs in the session on Friday. So that was actually a good sign. The Dow and the S&P also didn't do too badly for themselves. But yes, today, the futures as we see them are trading slightly soft. Now, what is also likely to happen over the course of the next few days is that volatility may pick up. We are technically at the place or in the band from where volatility tends to inch up a little bit. And VIX may pop back towards the top end of the range. And that is something all of us need to brace ourselves for. Now, why could this be happening? Well, the Fed policy announcement today. There are a couple of expectations which most people have, and I laid down, and then I'll just kind of brush it up with something that I think would help the street. So there is some people who are saying that will the Fed stay put and not do any action? I think that the no action or the no activity from Fed seems to be of a stretch. It could actually even spark some unwarranted volatility. So that is something that I think the Fed would want to avoid. What the general expectation is that the Fed may overhaul its forward guidance, especially for the bond buying program. Now, what the Fed could do and may do, and this is something that we should brace us or we should watch out for, is that the Fed may telegraph or tell the markets how bad things would have to get before the bond purchases are scaled up, and how much further does the economy need to recover before they are scaled down. If right now the market is veering on assumptions of what numbers would it take for the Fed to do X versus Y, if this is laid out, it might just clarify the things quite conveniently. But let's wait and watch. There could be a lot more. I mean, this is the US Fed. We don't know what a company in India is doing, let alone what the Fed is thinking like. So let's not pontificate too much over it, but it is something that all of us should be watching out for. Now, following the strong take for the US markets, Asia is trading largely in the green. Maybe an odd market here or there could be in the red, but largely Asian stocks are trading with a bit of a green. Even though they may be off from the highs of the day, they're trading with a fair degree of green. And the SGX Nifty, the last time I checked, was flat. Marginally higher, yes, but flat compared to the close yesterday. And therefore, you have to now see the pattern. The Friday, Monday, we were up about just 1/3%. Yesterday, we were very flat. Today, well, okay, 0.42%. So it's actually not as flat as I'd seen just about 10 minutes or 15 minutes back, maybe. But nothing too dramatic for the SGX Nifty either. Now, therefore, what does this do for the trade setup? Well, for the trade setup for the index today, well, I think, the global mood, the vaccine optimism with the Moderna announcement, etc., would all aid to the upside sentiment in trade. I somehow strongly believe that it's very unlikely that short traders would have the gumption to, initiate or continue with any large short positions ahead of the Fed's announcement and a possible stimulus announcement. I'm not saying the Fed will give a stimulus announcement, but with the Fed announcements, whichever way, shape, and form they come in, or a possible stimulus announcement from the government. And remember, Nancy Pelosi has now been on the forefront. I think there was a meeting called yesterday, last night. And if indeed we get some stimulus program going, then that could be a big deal as well. So both the Fed's announcement as well as a possible stimulus announcement could be in focus. I do think BFSI and NBFCs could well be in big focus today because of all the announcements that have happened. And, most brokerages, JP Morgan, for example, viewers today, is saying, and I read it out, that they believe that their top picks are ICICI Bank, Bandhan Bank, and HDFC Bank. They believe that SBI is an attractive risk-on play while the growth challenges still persist. But everybody seems to be bullish on BFSI, and we know what quality BFSI is doing, right? Bajaj Finance, a case in point yesterday, had such a mammoth move. So quality banks, quality financial institutions, could well still be the order of play today. Remember, when flows are coming in, they usually chase some of the largest buckets, and BFSI is as large as it can get. Now, also the flows, as I say, the flows, sorry, I was talking about the flows. FI flows continue 2484 crores yesterday as well versus DI selling off 2666 crores. This is the 13th straight day of positive FI number. Frankly, all the days in the month of December have seen positive flows. And viewers, we are at nearly 96,000 crores of inflows since the 1st of November. We might actually clock in 1 lakh crores of inflows into the equity segment in 2 months alone, if things don't spoil from here, of course. That's quite a telling statistic. So you have to watch out for that. What about stocks to watch in the session today? A couple of banks in focus because of the fundraising announcements. IDBI, they launched the QIP. They'll raise funds via the QIP at a price of 37.35, which is about a 7.6% discount. At 40.63, which is about 3.8% discount. 37.35 is PNB, which has also launched its QIP, and at 37.3 or thereabouts, the floor price is at a 7.6% discount to Tuesday's closing price. Remember, I'm not saying that these banks could do an encore of what Canara Bank did, but a successful QIP raising for a PNB could actually be pretty positive for its share price. Also keep in mind, though, that you will be careful about how much the stocks rally and when you buy them, because Canara Bank went up to 139 after the announcement and then cooled off quite significantly. So if you are trading these stocks, you won't be able to take these shocks and this volatility. So please bear that in mind. Embassy REITs, of course, has also launched its QIP, and that's the other company which is raising funds via a QIP issue. A couple of bulk deals that I thought were interesting. Welspun Corp, the promoter Welspun Group Master Trust, has bought about 26 or 27 lakh shares at 132 rupees per share yesterday. This remains in focus. It's a large stake purchase. 1% is not small. So do watch out for that one. And the reason I brought out Majesco is for multiple reasons. So one, a lot of people have been thinking that if the dividend is 974, why is it that people are not buying the stock, right? Now, what's incidentally happened yesterday is one of the smart investors, and I'm not saying, by the way, that if I'm calling that Unifi is a smart investor, which means others are dumb. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying Unifi is a smart investor, and Unifi, AIF, has sold about 2 lakh shares yesterday at 987 and 3.8 lakh shares at 990 per share. Now, viewers, if the question comes to your mind as to why is it that if Majesco has announced such a large dividend, people are selling instead of taking in the dividend? Two reasons. If you bought it earlier because the market knew that Majesco will come out with a large dividend, let's say at 400, 500 rupees, and if you're selling at 990, you pay 10% or 15% tax, 15% tax, let's assume short-term capital gains tax on the gains that you've made, just the gains that you made, right? Instead, if you're holding on to the share and if you are in the highest tax bracket, then the entire dividend of 974 comes into you, is taxable at the tax slab that you are in, which means you pay off a fairly large chunk as tax. And if you think that because the stock price will come off and then if you sell, you'll be able to avail capital loss, sorry, the laws don't permit that. Please check with your tax consultant, but that would amount to dividend stripping, and I don't think that is allowed. Right? So you may not be able to sell the shares for the first 3 months for this purpose. So please do your checks before you bought Majesco. If you bought it with the purpose that you will set off capital gains against capital losses, please check with your consultant. And if not, which I presume is the case, then you may want to sell off even right now. So just bear that in mind. Don't go out and buy Majesco thinking that the dividend is very attractive. Yes, it is, but it's subject to tax. So please be mindful of that. And last but not the least, what stood out for me, I'll try and bring this up and then try and see if we can do a screen share right here. Let me try and see if I can do a screen share here, viewers. Just yes, okay. So I have done a screen share, and now what I want you to see is this. If you can see it, this is the map of the day. Okay, it's not quite working out, so let's just cancel the screen share. Sorry, but essentially, what I want to say is that a Morningstar report suggested that India and the US are the two most investor-friendly markets in the world in terms of best practice for portfolio disclosure. Now, we've been talking about the various things that the watchdog is doing, SEBI is doing. Amongst things that have been done, well, according to Morningstar and nobody less, India and the US are the top ranked in terms of investor disclosures. That should also probably tell you a reason why foreign institution investors might be really comfortable putting the money into India. Never mind all the news flow that we hear about retrograde taxes, etc. The investor friendliness or disclosures is pretty strong, and that's a heartening thing to know. So something good to end the trade setup with today. Have a profitable day ahead. Brace for volatility. If you are inclined on doing your short positions, please be mindful of the fact that the Fed and a possible stimulus program may stand against you. Thanks so much for tuning in.